this weekend an interesting fight at flyweight between the former bantamweight champion Cupcake Miesha Tate taking on the recent title challenger for the flyweight strap, Lucky Lauren Murphy, our Fight Night Picks 2020 Female Fighter of the Year. She went 3-0. It was an amazing run, and she capped that year off with a finish win over USADA's darling, Lilia Shakarova, and then a split decision win over perennial number one contender, but not anymore, Joanne Wood. But if you look at it for Lauren Murphy, she's weeks away from her 39th birthday, and for Miesha Tate, she's a month away from her 36th birthday. And this has been a weird career arc for Miesha Tate because she won the belt, she beat Holly Holm, she lose the belt to Amanda Nunes, she lose to Raquel Pennington, and then she takes like 4.5 years off. She becomes the one championship vice president.
You're missing out on a bit though. She was like the Junior Dos Santos of this division when Ronda Rousey was on top. Like
the bantamweight division.
Yeah, but JDS could beat everybody not named Cain Velasquez. Miesha Tate was like that, but with Ronda Rousey. Like, there is no women's MMA without Miesha Tate.
In Strikeforce and in the UFC to Ronda Rousey. But if you look at it for Miesha Tate, that long gap away, I mean, even in 2022, she won Celebrity Big Brother, so that's interesting. And it's never good.
I've never watched Big Brother.
Neither have I. And it's never great when you're talking about accomplishments outside of the UFC, but you're still fighting and you're almost 36. But regardless, for Tate, she beat Marion Renault and she looked good. And then she fought Ketlin Vieira and couldn't close the distance. She did rally in round, 3 in round 4, yep. But she lost round 5. She definitely lost the first 2 rounds. But for Tate, that was a problem. Like, Vieira's a taller, bigger, longer fighter at bantamweight. She just kept her head back, stayed on her bike, and just landed 1, 2, 1, 2 from the outside. And Tate could never close it. Now, Tate did land a couple of good right hands when she actually stepped into her shots. But for the most part, Tate was ducking back and trying to land her punches, and she hit air a lot in that fight.
I could not agree more. That's the thing about Miesha Tate. We all know what her bread and butter is. She's a phenomenal wrestler. She has, like, that pit bull on a bone mentality of, hey, I'm not going to let go the second I can get to it. And it has really worked out for her in the past. The problem is with Miesha Tate, she has looked good on the feet in some spots, but the weird thing is she can never really get sustained levels of success going on the feet. But I will say this, the fight against Ketlin Vieira is a very different fight than the one with Lauren Murphy, because when you're Miesha Tate, okay, I'm this great wrestler, I have decent submissions, but you're probably not going to out-grapple Ketlin Vieira on the mat, so I just think stylistically that was an opponent who almost cut out half of Miesha Tate's skill set when she walked into the ring, and that's why I think this fight against Lauren Murphy is a great reset for her at 125 pounds, because A, it's a new weight class with a former champion who does have a big name. Let's not get it twisted. Miesha Tate's still one of the most popular women's MMA fighters on the planet, and if she is able to get a win over Lauren Murphy, I don't think a Miesha Tate versus Valentina Shevchenko fight is all that exciting, to be honest, but that is a fight that the UFC is going to put as the co-main event of a pay-per-view. It's a fight that they're going to sell and sell and sell because Miesha Tate fought Ronda Rousey and she fought Amanda Nunes. I just think this stylistically does favor Miesha Tate. She's fighting someone who doesn't have incredible power on the feet, but does have very good boxing, doesn't have great takedown defense, and is a little bit smaller. The difference is, Lauren Murphy has looked better at this stage of her career, so it is almost counterintuitive to say the things that I just said. The difference is, Tate was fighting, I would argue, better fighters in a deeper weight class.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it for Lauren Murphy, she had the Jessica I run at bantamweight, but she didn't have the Jessica I run at flyweight. Lauren Murphy ran it down to 125, competed on The Ultimate Fighter, lost Nico Montano, said screw that noise, and then just started winning. So that was the best part for Lauren Murphy. You look at the wins before she fought for the title, and again, I mentioned the 3-fight win streak in 2020. Wins over Andrea Lee by split decision, one over Roxanne Modafferi, one over Shakarova on short notice, and then the fight against Joanne Wood. She fights for the title. She gets finished in the 4th round. She didn't have much success in that fight. She's a plus 850 underdog. This fight between Tate and Murphy was originally supposed to take place at UFC 276. Murphy off the card due to the COVID, but I've seen her in the gym. I've seen her training since. The interesting thing for Murphy, she's trained a lot in Texas. She's a Texas-based fighter, and I know she's trained at the lab in the past, but she really is. Kruba Perez is in the corner. Her husband's in the corner as well. She's been training at pound for pound fitness with, that's Tisha Torres' gym. Justin Houghton is the head coach there. He's a kickboxing whiz, and he really has whipped a lot of fighters into shape. But she's mainly training with Miranda Maverick for this camp before the COVID, after the COVID. And I like that as a training partner to get ready for Tate. The flip side, Tate, she's going to turn 36 shortly, 15-year MMA career. This is going to be her 28th pro fight. She's never fought at flyweight, and it's a second cut to get ready to go down to 125 in as many weeks. I assume she's gotten her body ready for the cut. But it's just interesting because years ago I never would have thought Miesha Tate, 125. Let's give her a go.
I could not agree more. We were talking right before we got filmed. I do think Tate did look better physically when she did make her re-entry into the UFC. She looked very lean on the scales for her first fight back, so maybe she does think, okay, I can't compete with these women at 135 anymore. 125 is more of my natural weight class, but you're right. It's never promising to see a fighter past the age of 35 decide, okay, this is now my new weight class, because there is a lot that goes into switching weight classes and cutting weight in general. I always go back to when Michael Chandler said, I forget what fighter missed weight, but it was a lightweight fighter who missed weight. And Michael Chandler was like, hey, the weight cut doesn't start the week of the fight. The weight cut starts 2 months out. Like, you have to get your nutrition right. You have to make sure you burn the right amount of calories. You have to count your macros. Like, it's a lot of work that goes into all of this. So for Miesha Tate, I do think that she would not have made this move down if she wasn't going to do it in the smartest way possible. And I do think that stylistically, this is a very favorable matchup for Miesha Tate. Lauren Murphy is one of the few fighters older than Miesha Tate who she could fight ahead of her in the rankings. And I don't say that to be dismissive of Lauren Murphy, but it's the truth. Normally, Miesha Tate would be the longtime veteran compared to anybody who she's fighting. This is one of the rare opportunities where she is probably closer to her prime than Lauren Murphy is. And I only say that because I think Miesha Tate's much more physically strong than Lauren Murphy, especially at this weight class. Now, the weight cut is going to matter quite a bit, so maybe my opinion will shift by the time we get to this weekend. But if plan A for Miesha Tate is to wrestle, and plan A for Lauren Murphy is to box, what the heck is Lauren Murphy going to do to get separation from Miesha Tate? I just don't know what her plan B is going to be. I think she has good clinch control, but she's not great at breaking out of the clinch and getting separation again, and that's where Miesha Tate's going to go for a lot of her own takedowns.
That's my trouble when I was doing the analysis for this fight and watching the tape. Miesha Tate, before the layoff, before the losses, it was wrestling, it was pressure, it was clinch control, cage control, and getting you down in the mat, and having a low amount of volume on the feet. And then her 2 fights back, she has high volume against Marion Renault, and she looks great with her striking. She has high volume against Ketlin Vieira.
If I may, though, those are two of the most dangerous grapplers in the division. So if you're not going to wrestle with anybody, like Marion Renault submitted Sarah McMahon off of her back. Like, those are legitimate submission threats. So I really do believe that it was more opponent-based than her own style.
It's weird to see that, and then go into a matchup against Lauren Murphy down 10 pounds where you've never been, and then get into that same kind of fight that you were known for. And a perennial staple of Extreme Couture is Miesha Tate, unless one championship had you believe that she was ever going to fight out of Evolve, which is the silliest friggin' thing I've ever seen. Singapore zone. So I look at the odds in this fight. Lauren Murphy, the former title challenger, open plus 135, plus 140 roughly there. Miesha Tate open minus 162, they say on best fight odds. Minus 175 or thereabouts right now. We have a look at the total votes on Topology. I doubt they're close. I'm going to say over under 80% Miesha Tate.
I'll say under just because that's pretty high.
Oh, look at that. 584 total votes. 64% Tate, 88% by decision for the 36% that have Lauren Murphy, 90% by decision. I assume that fight goes the distance is like minus 500 in this one. So again, Murphy historically has better, volume, but we see nice volume in these last 2 Miesha Tate fights. I have Miesha Tate by a slim margin, but make your own approximations in this fight because Murphy, with that camp out of Colorado, getting ready for this matchup, facing off with a lot of primary grapplers, I would assume Raquel Pennington's like that secret Swiss Army knife in the back pocket. Somebody who's beaten Miesha Tate, had success against her on the ground as well. I would think that's a great person to have in your camp, but Lauren Murphy isn't Raquel Pennington, so I do have Tate here, but I think this is going to be a greasy fight that ends in a controversial decision.
I think the Pennington point is a very good one to bring up, but that's the thing with Lauren Murphy. She's going to be defending a lot in this fight, and it's hard to get your own offense on when you're always on the defensive. She's either going to be defending takedowns or trying to put up with the volume striking of Miesha Tate. And I think Tate, down at 125, and only a 3-round fight, like, this is probably the most comfortable setting Miesha Tate will get for the rest of her career. Like, everything's kind of been catered towards her for this fight at least. But again, I'm very concerned to see what she looks like at 125. Personally, I do think she will look good on the scales, but again, just because I said it doesn't mean I'm right. So I am very curious to see how Tate looks by the time they get to the scales, but I do agree with you. Right now I have Miesha Tate.
Red flags are there. Both of us going with the former champ Cupcake. Miesha Tate. Struggled with that sentence. Cupcake Miesha Tate. There we go. Taking on Lucky Lauren Murphy. Let us know in the comment section who you have. I'm really interested to get everybody's opinion. And you folks have been sharing some great ones down there. So keep them coming. We had a big time marquee matchup jumping at featherweight between Brian Ortega and El Pantera Yair Rodriguez in that main event. I can't wait for it. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.